You were all a bunch of degenerates.
What about that time I found you naked with that zombie takeout?
I was hot and I was hungry. What's up? Welcome to episode 293 of Zombie Takeout. The B-Movie and Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, we've got some listeners submitted. This is from John Phillips in reference to last week's episode, a review of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. He said, Appetite was out in 87, Paradise was a hit in late 88. It's possible someone in production was an early fan. I know I had the album before Sweet Child of Mine exploded in the summer of 88. Yeah, I had a friend who had Appetite for Destruction in the summer of 87. He got it just after we saw Welcome to the Jungle on Headbangers Ball.
I was going to say, wasn't it amazing that this California band had such a hardcore following on the Jersey Shore?
Yeah, I think they kind of ushered out hair metal.
Yeah.
Which I think in 87 was very, very welcome.
Definitely. And, Metallica was being brought into the mainstream at the time, too. Right. So, yeah, it was... People had it.
John also said, with the pilot, Paramount rejected it, as you said, Scott, for being too cerebral. They also had a request, no female first officer. And then in parentheses, he says, we can't leave a woman in charge of anything. And to show their intelligence of that statement, they also said, get rid of the guy with the ears.
That I had no idea.
Yeah.
They had said. I know Roddenberry originally wanted to make him, like, red-skinned.
Okay.
But then they realized there were still so many people with black and white screens that it would have just come across as, like, a gray or black guy. So that's how they developed the mustard-colored skin, because they knew it would look weird on black and white and color as well.
Right.
He's an alien.
And finally he said, Gene wanted a 50-50 crew. That was shot down because executives thought it would imply that there was a lot of fooling around going on.
Which there would have been. They're in space, for fuck's sake. Yeah.
They compromised on 70-30. If you want to hear more, the 20th anniversary edition of the motion picture soundtrack includes a second disc of a 70s album called Inside Star Trek. So it's not on the DVD. You don't have to buy TMP. It's just the soundtrack, which, from what I recall, was okay. Also, in reference to last week's episode, Bato Winter on Twitter said, at Zombie Takeout, wasn't you expecting him to say, put up your dukes, hashtag Cowardly Lion, Wizard of Oz, and he put up a picture of God from Final Frontier, and he does look a lot like the Cowardly Lion.
Excuse me, but what does God need with a Twitter account?
And finally, Chris Cornish on Facebook, in reference to the trailer for this week's movie, said, so many fond memories of that movie. I don't want to go back and revisit and possibly change them. To which Bob McLennan replied, it holds up pretty well. And I finally said, after watching it for the show tonight, at Chris Cornish, good plan. I just finished watching it for the show, and I used to like it a lot more than I do now. Which, of course, is the perfect segue for this week's movie.
Spoilers!
Which is from 1985, Real Genius. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary. Sponsored by Cookie Cutters. Great for baking, not so much for filmmaking.
And also brought to you by the United States Defense Department. You do know they pay well, right?
Mm-hmm. Very well.
Yeah. Okay, so we have this boy wonder genius. He's 15 years old, a freshman in high school, but he's ready to finish it because he's just way ahead of his class.
He built a laser for a science fair.
Right. So there's this hotshot professor who has some back defense dealings going on and has a major project that the Defense Department is trying to railroad through to get done on a short, I don't know why they would have such a short time span for this thing, but,
apparently
whatever.
They have a target in mind.
Yeah. So he pretty much not drafts, I guess. He
recruits
this child prodigy into his college program, and of course to work on his project at night. Now, rather than thinking this kid could crack, let's let him ease into this thing, or he could just go nuts, he pretty much puts him on like a slave labor sort of pace, just all else be damned, just get the job done and go for it. On this crew already, though, you have a few different opposing viewpoints, although it turns out some of them were working on other projects at the same time. But they didn't say this until towards the end of the movie. It looked like they were all working on the laser at one point. But one was working on like the mirror and tracking device for it, and some of them were working on the laser. So you have the straight-laced nerd who is trying to just suck up to the professor, getting his dry cleaning and whatnot, and just trying to get in his good graces in any means possible.
Niedermeyer, I believe his name was.
You know what? We've called him 3 different things in show prep. I thought it was Milton.
Well, no, the actual character is Kent. I was referencing Animal House.
Oh, okay. So we have him, and then we of course have the wacky slacker nerd,
John Belushi,
who, well,
not exactly, but you get where I'm going. Jeremy Piven.
Belushi was more of tank, but the Iceman, of course, himself, Val Kilmer, playing the wacky roommate who's trying to...
Same year or the year after?
Year before, I believe.
Year before, okay, it was 86, okay. I still haven't seen Top Gun. So.
This is 85, and Top Gun was 86 because, well, you couldn't be in the 8th grade without liking Top Gun. Anyway, that's another story entirely. You can take my tail anytime there.
Maybe that's the problem. I was already in high school by 86.
So where was I in this mess? All right. They play all sorts of geeky practical jokes. They inadvertently make a weapon for the Defense Department, and then after they are finished making it, they say, "Hey, this big gun we just made that we just shot a hole in the campus with, there might be a military purpose to this." Which, I mean, I think I was cool with this movie until it got to that point. I was like, what kind of fucking idiot would think that?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, man. You made a gun. Yes, it's a laser. You tell me these geeks didn't, watch any sci-fi where I don't know what they use for guns there. Maybe lasers? Especially when they shot a hole in the campus, like across... When one of their experiments, they shot through the target, through the brick wall, through the outer wall, through the
through a tree, through a sign on the other side of campus.
Right. When they did that, should they have then thought, hey, maybe we've just made a gun? But then, so then they do this crazy stunt where they break into the military complex, sabotage the experiment, and hilarity ensues.
If you've seen Animal House or Revenge of the Nerds, or to reference one after this, Piece of You, take that, apply really smart people, so again, Revenge of the Nerds, and take out about 90% of the sex.
It's true. This was like a year after Revenge of the Nerds. This was pretty much a Revenge of the Nerds knockoff, but the focus on it, of course, was more about science working for the military-industrial complex, which might not have been so bad if it wasn't so poorly done.
Well, actually, the one thing I do have to say positive is the science is very strong. To prepare for it, Martha Coolidge, the director, spent months researching laser technology and the policies of the CIA and interviewed dozens of students at Caltech, which is what Pacific Tech in the movie is based on.
I had wondered if this came from actual stories.
From what I understand, a lot of the pranks were inspired by actual pranks.
Well, yeah, and I could see the pranks being done and stuff, but I was wondering more about the, the students getting duped by the military-industrial complex. Like, did that really happen where there were students who were going, oh, I just thought I was making a light switch or something?
You see, they also had some hacking ability because they hack at the end of the movie.
Yes.
And you can't tell me they weren't checking up on exactly who they were working for, if they could hack.
Right. How do they not know that? And how does the university, not question, that it was some sort of scandal that the university worked for the CIA or whatever?
Right.
Because most likely the government pays the university for this.
Right, yeah.
The movie we did a few weeks before, the Cannibal Women, the Avocado Jungle of Death, handled that more realistically than this movie. That's saying something.
Just rolling it back to the beginning of the film, I did like the Weapons Through the Ages montage during the credits.
That was a very weird intro, though, because of the 40s kind of sound to it. I mean...
They start with spears and they work all the way to, like, nuclear weapons.
But, I mean, were they trying to evoke World War II?
Yeah, I think so.
It just didn't make any sense for this movie, though. I mean, we're talking about college students in the 80s making a laser for the CIA. That has nothing to do with World War II.
Well, I think that was just general sort of military-sounding music. And, it was just showing the development of weapons, which is what the movie is, ostensibly about. And I forgot about the whole the government stuff at the beginning, the shadowy meeting and whatnot. I completely forgot that was there. I remembered that they were working for the military, but I forgot we actually saw the people they were working for. And was that Bernie Casey who walked out at the beginning?
What,
There was one of the generals or one of the military types at the beginning who walked out of the meeting, pretty much refused to do anything, refused to be a part of it. It looked like Bernie Casey.
It didn't really seem like that went anywhere where they really... It
didn't.
Yeah.
It was pure setup, which is fine, except you have this one guy walking out and refusing to be a part of it, and they don't follow up on that at all.
What was the point of it then, if they had one guy who was standing up for them that, oh, these guys are badasses, they're gonna, go and kill this guy?
Yeah, that's what I expected.
So, but they just talked about it, and then it happens off screen, maybe.
Did they even mention it happening off screen?
No.
So, nothing came of it. And I think that speaks to a bit of an issue with the movie, one of the many. The characters are very two-dimensional. I mean, yeah, it's an 80s comedy, but they're two-dimensional for an 80s comedy. Chris Knight, Val Kilmer's character, is just the party animal. Hathaway is just the villain. The smart kid is just the smart kid. There's no other side to anybody.
I'm conflicted about the acting in it, honestly.
Okay.
On one hand, my gut's telling me this is so over-the-top, overacted. On the other hand, though, I remember college. And there were people that, even though they weren't on stage and acting, they were over the top.
Oh, yeah, people. Definitely. The acting itself didn't really strike me as being excessive. I pretty much bought everybody in their roles.
It was, but it might have fit. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I obviously it was a direct, a conscious decision for the director to just go at it, just do, like the manic pixie girl,
Yeah.
I mean, she was really over the top.
Yeah. She was a little bit too eccentric, maybe.
Right. And I think, is she overacting? Or
I think that was the director.
Or is she acting like a college student?
Oh. Yeah, I didn't have a problem buying her in the role, but she was a bit of a cartoon character.
Because, I mean, how many people did we know who were pretty much doing just that, who were
true.
clueless to their surroundings, masters of the obvious, bringing up non sequiturs that were just kind of like, what? Maybe it was just right.
Yeah. I don't know. Overall, I was just really distracted by all the tropes. Because this is really cookie-cutter college movie.
Yeah.
My first thought was PCU ripped it off, but then I realized, no, they ripped off Animal House, which is what everything rips off.
I think it was much more Revenge of the Nerds.
Well, it was a year later, so I don't know how much they could have ripped off Revenge of the Nerds. It was certainly, inspired by it.
Does this really take long to make? You
fair enough.
Nerds in college. I mean...
Now, on the positive side, there was one line that I really liked at the beginning at the science fair. Hathaway, the villain, says to Mitch's parents, the kid, "Is Mitch by any chance adopted?" Says it right to them. I loved it. I just got a big kick out of that line.
He's been a professional asshole. They've had a lot of the top shelf professional assholes in this movie.
Yeah, true. One of the generals at the beginning I recognized. The main one who did all the talking. He's kind of this. He plays a lot of villains, a lot of heavies.
Right, and then you had the guy whose daughter, who was that Debbie, the Valley Girl, Debbie. Yeah.
Same director, by the way. That's how they got her.
Deborah Foreman.
That's it. Yeah. Now we should address the montages.
Holy fuck.
Now, I only caught 2 of them. You said there were 4?
I've never been... I've never liked montages, but they never really irked me.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie had 4 fucking montages in it. And I know because every time there was one, I would write in all caps, montage with exclamation points. There was the first one, 25 minutes into it.
I have that in my notes. Less than 30 minutes in, and we get a montage. How 80s.
It's absolutely fucking pointless, too.
Mm-hmm.
It was just him getting acclimated to college, pretty much.
Yeah.
Why did we need a montage for that?
To show off a song on the soundtrack.
Do you even remember what the song was?
Well, no, it was generic new wave.
Right, it was just a generic bullshit song. It wasn't like they paid money to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So... There was that. I think montage number 2. Oh, I wish I'd written down what they did for each and every one of them. But yeah, they did that 4 times in the movie. There were 4 songs where they would just have these, things of action going on.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're testing the laser. They're, then they're hacking in the end.
Yeah. The other one that I have in my notes is the getting even montage after she tells him he has to get even with Hathaway.
Yes. Right. So there was that. I think that was the second one. The third one was them, the exam and the laser.
Oh, right.
And then the fourth one was them hacking and getting in the military base and doing that one.
Okay. I skimmed through the second half of the movie just before we got together on Skype. So I was looking for more montages. I guess they were too short for me to really catch.
A hat trick.
No, I actually watched it. I was skimming through it again to look for montages, to clarify that.
A hat trick is 3.
Mm-hmm.
A 4, though. I mean, that's a grand slam of montages. And none of them were necessary. The only thing I could think of, were they just banking on short memory spans? Were they thinking the MTV kids, us, needed to be, distracted with some other form of medium every 20 minutes, maybe? Because that's kind of how it timed out.
Yeah. Maybe just because montages were a thing in the 80s and they were trying to be a thing.
But usually that was towards the end with the training scene, you're the best around, kind of thing. We're going to win this fight.
But they were just throwing everything out in this movie. It was just, like us. Here's a thing you like. It's the college tropes. Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Montages.
Well, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl wasn't even a thing back then, but I mean, it wasn't like named until much later.
She could have been one of the first. But, modern music, montages, college tropes, it was just, the movie was desperate to be liked.
What a weird soundtrack that was, too. I mean, it was believable, though, because the nerds, if they're throwing a party back then, of course, would have Don Henley, and I think they're just missing some Billy Joel.
Uh-huh. Yeah, nobody in college was listening to that album.
But the nerds would have been.
No, I think it was too popular for them.
What?
Don Henley?
Yeah, nerds would totally be listening to Don Henley, I think.
One thing I did like in one of the montages, in the Getting Acclimated one, the class that was all tape recorders.
Yeah, that's like the last, I think it's the last piece of my notes here. In all my semesters of college, and I've taken a lot, I don't think I've ever seen a single person, just leave a tape recorder.
No, nobody's
in a lecture hall,
that, no.
And just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably for the best too, because I would have never listened to a recording.
I did like the gag though, because he walks into a class, and not only has the entire class done that, but the instructor has done that.
Which I don't even understand how you would do recording at math.
It was a very Python-esque gag in the middle of a movie that was, far less interesting. So I did enjoy that.
It was probably one of the best gags in the film. Well, that and maybe the climax.
Now, as much as I'm bagging on this for ripping off Animal House, there is a movie that I used to like before we reviewed it that very clearly ripped this off. PCU. Droz is so clearly based on Chris Knight. Jeremy Piven's character.
I'm trying to remember PCU. That was a long time ago we reviewed that.
I've seen the movie enough before we reviewed it to know it very well. I loved it before we reviewed it.
That was episode 103.
Okay.
If we're looking at zombie takeout history. Which was December 8th, 2011.
Okay.
That was the last time I've seen PC.
It was the last time I've seen it too, but I was very familiar with it before then.
Yeah.
Chris Knight, Val Kilmer's character, really reminded me of Droz. I think he was very much based on it. Because that trope wasn't really in Animal House or Revenge of the Nerds, really. I mean, Revenge of the Nerds, they had a leader, but they kind of had two leaders, but they weren't, the slacker.
It felt like the college end was almost just a background to the military angle of the movie.
See, that I got the opposite. The military was kind of a throwaway thing that just gave them an ending, really, to me. It was all college tropes beyond that.
I mean, it was the plot, really, in the end. The academia getting, used by the military.
Yeah. Well, you have to have the misfits getting abused by somebody. In this case, it was the military.
But, I mean, I guess that's why I'm curious if stuff like this actually happened, or is this just the dumbest thing that Hollywood's ever done, where they have these smart people.
Yeah, I think it's the
unaware they're creating a weapon.
Yeah.
I could have understood if it was like some sort of power generator, if it was just a component of a weapon. Yeah, sure. Maybe they didn't think about. I think the show The Big Bang Theory has done like the same thing, where they invented something and they're like, wait a minute, maybe the military could use this for something too. It's like, oh Jesus, really? I mean, of course they can.
Comedy works better with dumb characters. But I mean, this was basically, misfits who are just trying to get by are terrorized or used or abused by the establishment in some way, and then they have to fight back. That's every college movie.
But what makes this ridiculous is they would most likely be getting jobs at this, defense department when they graduate.
Mm-hmm. In fact, Chris Knight interviews for one of them where he tours the building.
Yeah.
He knew where he was going.
Yeah. And
he was still surprised that he was building a weapon.
Right. This big gun we've made that has, unlimited range. Do you think they could use that as a weapon? Oh my god.
Yeah, I actually think you've maybe talked down my rating. Now, there was another gag I did like. The antenna braces.
Yes.
There's this character, Kent. He's kind of the kiss-ass. And they turn his braces into an antenna. Not a radio antenna. Well, a radio antenna. But they don't use it to get a radio station. They actually convince him that he's hearing Jesus.
What I did like, the kid, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel Jarrett, Mitch Taylor. But, I mean, he actually was 15 when they did this. So, and he really was just perfect for this role. And it's a little weird, the whole thing with the older woman.
Yeah.
Did I miss something, though, with that? Was there something edited out before with that older woman and him?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because who was that older woman, first off?
Oh, that one. I thought you meant the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. The actual older woman. I forgot about her.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
In his room when they come when he comes back from something.
That had to have had a setup that was edited out.
And they're ready to fuck, or she's ready to fuck, and it was like, wait, what is this? Where did it come from? She just says the line, "I've been waiting." Now I think about it, it's really funny. I've been waiting 3 years for this, which means
since he was 12.
Wanting him since he was 12. I guess when I'm watching it, I'm kind of shocked. But now that I'm thinking about it, that's a really funny fucking line.
Maybe that was just a great joke that they threw in out of nowhere. It does sound like there should have been a setup, though.
Yeah. And of course, you reverse the genders on that.
Oh, yeah.
you get produce thrown at you.
Of course.
It's all fun and games.
Of course, this all leads up to the classic ending scene where a house full of popcorn is set off by a laser.
This gets like an extra brain just for that, I think.
Hathaway and I do have something in common, the villain of the film. We both hate popcorn.
What?
I just got too tired of it working at a movie theater.
You didn't even work there long enough.
I just had to smell it every day, and I've tried eating it since then, fairly recently, and I just can't do it.
I make it all the time at home.
Incidentally, Mythbusters tested it, and you can pop popcorn with a laser, but you're not going to destroy a house with it. It'll just stop expanding and char.
Well, right. Actually, the amount they had in kernels would not have been enough to fill the house.
Oh, yeah, that too. But I mean, even if you do fill the house, you're not going to break it apart.
I mean, let's think. How many pounds of popcorn do you think were in that big Jiffy Pop? Foil.
I have no idea, but even if popcorn goes 4 times its size, 5 times its size, it's still not going to fill the house.
It wasn't the size of a car, even.
Right.
It was smaller than like a smart car, I would say. I mean, if you expand that by 4 times its size, you're talking maybe filling a room at most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you would have had to fill a room with kernels to have destroyed the house.
Right. And then you wouldn't have the gag of Kent walking in on it.
Well, right, where he thinks he's talking to Jesus and the laser comes to the stained glass window, which, I mean, like I said, it's going to get a brain just for that.
All right, on to sequels and remakes.
On to sequels and remakes.
A potential TV series is in the works. On September 24th, 2014,
It's called The Big Bang Theory.
NBC is set to produce the comedy series with Sony TV, Happy Madison, and 3 Arts Entertainment.
Oh, Jesus. So it's going to have... Well, I guess it won't have Sandler in it.
Well, it's his production company, so.
Yeah.
I think a series might actually be better than the movie, because then they won't have the college tropes.
I think quite the opposite. I think they'll have more college tropes to fill up a series.
Well, but it won't be the classic setup of a college movie in the arc. They'll have to stretch it out more.
There is one character we have not spoken about.
Oh, yeah, Laszlo.
Still. Laszlo.
Yeah, he was the guy who lives in the basement. He was the, on the IT crowd. Was it Noel?
I haven't seen that show in so long.
He was the goth guy who lived in the side.
That's right. There was a goth guy who lived in
basically it's him.
And then I think UHF swiped this to have what's his name living in the studio.
Yes. Anthony Geary's character. Yes.
Yeah.
And in PCU it was the guy watching TV. I don't think Revenge of the Nerds had an equivalent.
No, it was just a nice little surreal touch.
Yeah.
But then the fact that this guy is the one that said, "Hey, that gun you made,
that's a weapon."
I think they could use that as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And them scoffing at him like, "What are they gonna do? Shoot someone with it?"
Mm-hmm.
Or they joke about making Swiss cheese or whatever.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And Laszlo was basically a plot device, but he was a fun character. All right, on to brains. This movie is really the textbook definition of it's fine. It's okay. It's just kind of there. I have to give it a little extra for the scientific accuracy, and I liked all of the performances, so I'm going to go 3.
It was enjoyable, but there were some. The plot just made me want to bash my head in. There were some odd things. I'm going 3.5.
All right, and what have we learned?
We learned that popcorn is good for all your home decorating needs.
And I learned that there are a lot of decaffeinated brands on the market today that are just as tasty as the real thing. All right, so until next time, and we'll be revealing He Never Died. Chaz was waiting for this one.
Oh, hey Chaz, I hope you're still out there.
This is the one with Rollins as the guy who I think might be dead, but is still moving around. He's living dead somehow.
Right.
We'll find out how. And we'll get to see Rollins act, which I haven't seen in a while and I used to enjoy, so.
Some spoken word.
Until then, go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you enjoy the show, spread the word. Give us a little word of mouth. Of course, we appreciate the listeners we have, but more would be better. You also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed so far, and every movie we're going to review. I just checked it. I think it's up through 304. I think Just to Kill is 305, and that's the placeholder.
Of course. So Michael Caine.
You also find the request form. If you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form and the recommendations list. I thought this was a shoo-in before I watched it.
Me too.
I had very fond memories like Chris Cornish. It's another case like PCU movie I really liked that I reviewed and not so much anymore.
The one thing about it that I was leery about going into it was that I know I've seen this all the way through maybe twice, but nothing really stuck with me before going into it. So it was kind of like watching it for the first time.
Yeah, that's true.
As I was seeing it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this part. Yeah, I didn't see this.
I remembered the Tanning Invitational and the ending, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And I remember generally liking it.
I remember the car gag, a few other things in there. Crossbow.
Yeah. You can email us, zombietakeout@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-CTL1, or for the Alphanumerico Challenged.
You can go fuck yourself.
414-368-9861. Of course, always remember that you'll always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
There you are.
I think the young people enjoy it when I get down verbally, don't you?
You were all a bunch of degenerates.
What about that time I found you naked with that zombie takeout?
I was hot and I was hungry. Let me take that again. I was hot and I was hungry.